I'm Jeff Rabinowitz, and this season we're bringing in voices from all sides to challenge assumptions, bridge divides, and build a better understanding of today's biggest issues. And today I'm joined with Lisa Rivera, a good friend of mine, and I'm excited to have her. Hi, Lisa. Welcome to
Hi.
Political No Brainer. So we just chatted a bit before we started recording. We're talking about maybe we'll touch on education, maybe we'll touch on, who knows? We're gonna kind of feel it out. But so the reason, and I had at least he had some great questions. One of the reasons education is really my passion, and I love to say one of the reasons it's my passion is because as a child, I couldn't read, and the teachers were convinced I'd never be able to read because I was so dyslexic. So they kind of gave up on the idea of teaching me how to read. So my dad took it on and taught me how to read. And ultimately, I liked reading, and we would go to the library on Saturdays. And the one thing I liked reading is this is of course I'm very old. Before Google, in the corner of the library was newspapers. They were on like sort of. I always remember them hanging like on dowels, And I would read newspapers all the time, old newspapers, current events. I became a current events wonk. But that being said, that's just how I built my passion for education. I always think we could do better. So Lisi had some questions. I think we could just get right into them. What do you think about the education system as it stands today?
I was actually like when you talked about how your dad took the time to develop your reading skills and work with you outside of school. I feel like the involvement of the parents directly correlates with the success of the child. And I'm noticing that a lot of parents feel that the responsibility is more on the school, but don't want to take that extra time to make sure that, like what their kids are learning. And so I think that is an issue that is happening a lot now. I had a friend that was a teacher through America, and she would hold parent teacher conferences, make herself very available. And she said it was only maybe consistently like three or four parents that were consistently showing up and interested in what their kids were doing. And then the children that needed the attention and the extra care was really like the parents had no, oh, that's on you. So I feel like that is a issue with education nowadays is like the collaboration and the actual investment on both ends.
Yeah, and what's interesting, granted, this is me thinking out loud, but when the teacher says that there's generally three or four parents showing up at every meeting, it's generally the same three or four parents. Now, I'm not there for the meeting, but I'm going to go on a limb and say it's generally the same three or four parents. So that always leads me to my point. How do we get to the kids that are being left behind? There's this old slogan, "No child left behind," but there's a
Yeah.
lot of children left behind, and that is a part of it. It's very much a part of it. There's parents that are just not involved. They're either and I'm not knocking parents at any level, at any parents. They may be very busy. They may be working two, three jobs. Things are harder than ever now. It doesn't matter. I'm not getting into the current administration taking away social programs that we were very used to. I'm getting into
Yeah.
the fact that life is more difficult. It's just to make ends meet. Housing's gotten more expensive. And so there's so many concerns that come with those thoughts, and that's one of the reasons, like I had mentioned to you just before we started, I'm thinking about running for Lake County School District. I don't know if I can win. Lake County School Board or any other school board is an enormous task. It's not an entry level position you run for. Generally, you run for something a lot more local. So in order to win, I'm looking at the need to get around 130,000 votes. That's enormous for a first run. So,
So that will involve
but
a
it
lot of
doesn't.
community involvement and visibility.
Right. And I don't know that I have the time. All I know is that I have this. This is my tool. My podcast is my tool. And I'm just getting concerned parents, concerned friends, concerned candidates on the show to talk about education. Often it's education, often it's housing, often it's healthcare. I'm not like we say, we get past the winner takes all, we get past we challenge assumptions, we bridge divides, and we build a better understanding for our biggest issues. That's what we do.
Yeah.
As a candidate, I believe I can do that. So let me just say, parents not involved is a big issue, and there needs to be some way to fill that void. Now, I've said, um, if the kids are floundering, there's and how do we get them engaged? Do we need more counselors? Do we need more mentors? Whatever it is, do we need it? Can we find the money? Mentors are a great thing. Let's get people, often Home Depot hires people that are retired plumbers, that are retired people that work in the garden, landscapers that are retired sheetrockers. Maybe those are the mentors we need in our school system to get back to teaching trades.
Yes, that is actually a very viable option nowadays, especially with the cost of college and going to school to getting a degree now, a master's is really the ultimate way to get a secure job because now getting a bachelor's can't guarantee you a good income. The interest, I my siblings and I we have degrees and my little sister is still paying hers off. She's graduated like I want to say about 10 years she's graduated now and the debt is just like very very high for her and she still had trouble finding a career in her degree because she majored in psychology and she was working with autistic children and she had to go back and get her master's to be able to continue in the psychology field. It's just overwhelming, but then with the trades it's short term good results, job security, and it requires, like a little bit of dedication, but it's not as like time consuming for 6 years, 8 years.
So, I love the idea of college. We've gone down this here, in the previous administration was willing to eliminate college debt. It got challenged, it got challenged. As much as he wanted to eliminate debt, very little got eliminated. Some did get eliminated. But you
Yeah.
brought up this great point that debt is an issue. People are leaving college with enormous amounts of debt. I have a good friend, Charlie Heineman, who is just on this show. He graduated law school. He's been a public servant for 10 years.
Oh,
It's a
wow.
rule that if you're a public servant for 10 years, they cover your college debt.
Yes.
So that's a great option. My point's always been every kid should go to college. I don't know the solution as to how do we pay for it. I do know that people are leaving college with a debt, and it's enormous at times. And then there was once a book written by a man named Robert Kiyosaki. He says it's called Rich Dad Poor Dad. He talks about
Yeah.
working for money and making money work for you, the two things. Now, my point has always been, can we cover that portion of life in our K through 12 system? Where yeah, you get out of college, you work for money, you work to pay your debt, but how do you make that money work efficiently after you cross after you jump through all the hoops to get your college degree. You get a job in psychology, you're making a decent living, but you still got this enormous debt. How do you get to the point where you're taking your living and invest it and make it how do you get to the point where you're really getting rich?
See,
And
and that there's a little thing that came up actually, because I actually don't think everybody should go to college. I think if you are interested in a career that requires a specialized degree, then definitely go for it. But, on the flip side, we need to stop having classism over people actually working because, we put like a status on what people do for a living. And so someone could be content like working as a manager at McDonald's, but we put so much like sly disses on the position that it makes people ashamed of what they do, thinking that because they don't have an education past high school that that's not good enough. With that keeping up with the Joneses type of thing. And then on the other hand, when you mentioned about making college more affordable, we as a country don't emphasize financial education. So, a lot of people go up for loans or get these, high APRs, or they don't really know about how to be financially efficient because we don't teach money as um, as a need. It's more of like as a convenience. Oh, if you don't have it, you can just put it off for later. Or, oh, well, you don't know what that means. You can just, buy now, pay later. So we don't really put emphasis on the value of knowing what your money can do.
we don't at all. We really don't at all. And you mentioned McDonald's, and I always use that as a classic example of where we it's a big void in our K through 12 education system. So the other day, it's funny you mentioned McDonald's. I read this article. Like I said, I'm always reading current events, whatever it is. I'm not just necessarily newspapers anymore. I'm always online. My wife thinks I'm always on social media. No, social media does generate a lot of good stories. So this particular story generated by social media was I never knew this would be my only job. So here's this 67-year-old man that's been with McDonald's for 50 years, started at
Oh,
17. And he's the owner operator of 33 stores from my hometown of Long Island. 33 stores. Now I'm willing to guess that each store generates just say 100. I think it's a lot more. $100,000
Okay.
a year. I think it's a lot more. He's a man that's making, at my figures, which are extremely on the low end, $3.3 million a year, and he's ready to pass the business ownership. McDonald's is a portion ownership. You don't actually own the building, you own the
The
business,
franchisee
and
type
you're
thing.
partners with McDonald's. But he's actually passing that on to his 2, 3 kids to take over, run the operation. He's getting ready to
Starting
spend
from
more
this
time on
nobody.
his boat. So do we ever? That's another thing. Do we ever talk to kids about, oh, like you said, when he was a kid, he said it was cool to work at McDonald's. It was hard to get the job because so many of your friends wanted the job and you made friends when you were working there. And he loved the job and he changed the training program. He rewrote it and he got position after position till they offered him the owner operator of a store, and they just ultimately he grew 33 stores of owner operator. So we not, and I'm sure he went to school at their expense and got his business degree still. So we knocked the idea of McDonald's, and then we find out this could be an enormous opportunity. And we don't train our kids at all in our education system what is viable opportunities. It's great to say be a doctor, but if doctoring doesn't interest you, if healthcare doesn't interest you, and plumbing does, what happened to those options? What happened to those? We used to have, like, when my school, we used to have BOCES, and you could go to school to be a plumber. And we need to get, and then comes again the second part of that is you're a plumber and they make good money. I know because I know how much I pay them to fix something here in the house. And what then you're making money. Do they know how to make their money? Do you working for good money? You're working for a good living. Do they know how to make that good living work for them? And can we cover that in our K through 12 education system? That's one of the things I'm going to bring to the table as far as a candidate for our school board is how
Yeah,
can we do things differently?
yeah, because we need to put more emphasis on like financial education starting in high school. I mean, I remember, I think middle school, I took like a home economics class and we learned how to balance a checkbook. And I think we had to learn to boil an egg, little like simple, home life skills. That class eventually got taken away, but like learning to balance a checkbook and, doing like doing a mock monthly bill we did in the class as well. That was like very helpful to learn about budgeting. And we don't teach kids about that kind of stuff nowadays. And that'd be great for school to get them started to they can understand the value of a dollar. And then even with the apprenticeships and the internships, that's a good way for like the starting with juniors instead of like high school seniors if they're interested in things.
Yeah,
That's
I
also
think it's because a lot of people, you know, there's so many experiences I have in life. I volunteer at I'm going to get into housing now for a moment. I'm going to digress for a moment. I volunteer at essentially a home, a repurposed hotel on Lee Road, and it's a home for homeless veterans. And so I literally asked the director. We've become friends. I won't say her name because I haven't told her I'm going to use her name, but I won't even say the name of the facility. It doesn't really matter. At this point, I'm just going to generalize the comment. So I've asked her, I was convinced. I was so convinced in my mind. I didn't even think there was a point to asking this question. Why are veterans homeless? And she says because they floundered through they floundered through the K through 12 system. I was convinced it was PTSD. I was convinced they just couldn't function after their years of experience and traumatic experiences like being in the military, being in Fallujah, being in Iraq, Afghanistan. She said that's not really it. They floundered through the K through 12 system. They decided to join the military. The military provides them everything they need: an income, a place to stay, 3 hots, and a cot. Then they get out in the real world, they no longer can take being a part of the military. It becomes overwhelming, and they have no life skills. So budgeting, renting a home, buying a car, making it to work. Because in the military, you're going to make it to work. There's either transportation. Now, you may own a car and live on a base, but if you don't, you're going to get to your job. They hit the streets running, and they no longer have those safety guards. They no longer have
okay.
those guardrails, and they just the little bit they have, they're not able to afford a home sometimes, and that's one of the reasons. And then the other experience I've had with reaching out to different community organizations is called kids timing out of foster care. At 18,
Um,
they're thrown out to the system. So they get
and
this
not
state
getting
per
help with
diem, which doesn't even
either.
cover rent. And they become, they get into maybe a relationship, they have a child that they can't afford, the relationship falls apart, they still have this beautiful child, but they're not able to even support themselves. So wouldn't it make sense to have this not just balance in your checkbook, to fully understand every part of life that you're going to get into at the age of 18 and on, and get people ready for it, including investing, including buying a home. We've got such a housing crisis in America. So housing's getting more expensive. People,
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, I mean, it's scary. I feel bad when I drive home and I see the amount of people just walking on the streets around the 7-Elevens and stuff with nowhere to go. And
Yeah.
so, but that's just, I just really think we need to do more with our K through 12 system. I'm not sure if it needs to be during regular school hours or if it needs to be online as a voluntary course. I always thought we should create these courses, make them online, and make them voluntary and make them incentive based. Complete a certain course, really come up with a good essay at the end, and get some kind of reward for it. A $50 Amazon gift card, or just a $50 Visa card or something. To
Yeah,
to
that sounds
really,
cool.
yeah, an incentive based extra curriculum. But what's your like when as you're so let me ask you a question now. As we're both about no, I'm actually older than you. I know that for a fact. But as your experience in life, what was some of your challenges you faced in life and overcame?
In terms of education or just overall?
Overall.
For me, growing up, I dealt with a lot of bullying. That was a big challenge. And then obviously transitioning into adulthood and trying to like navigate like identity, I guess, because I have adult attention deficit disorder, and I wasn't diagnosed until later, but the signs were there, and so trying to manage without knowing what the origin was or what can be fixed or what can be addressed, that was a challenge as well. As an adult, things kind of transition differently, dealing with like serious life issues and, recognizing I need to get help or I need to talk to somebody. A lot of people aren't open to therapy or, addressing like real deep internalized issues. And so that was something that as an adult, I was able to like recognize was a need for me.
So you definitely had these. You knew, just like myself, you knew you had these challenges as a child, but there was no recognition as a child. Yeah, but you took it on your own as an adult to address them, and you became a fully productive woman, and a fully productive. You made a good life for yourself. But how many people are they don't get anything addressed as a child? They don't have parents that really have time for them. And I'm not
Yeah.
again. I that's it. I'll just say they don't have parents that have time for them for whatever reason. And
Yeah.
how many of these people wind up now? I see, just like myself, I'm in my home, you're in your home, but how many of these people wind up homeless? And then you say to yourself, you know, we've got too many social programs. We're giving people free rent. It's wrong. It's enabling. We're not.
Yeah. Everybody has that example, but they don't have a direct person they can reference. A lot of them, I've noticed like maybe 8 out of 10 will be like, oh, yeah, so and so, or I know somebody that does this. And I'm like, do you know them actually personally, or it's just hearsay? There's like this phantom person that's, ripping off a system that nobody has actually encountered. Or if it is, it's a direct family member of theirs, but they don't want to help them either. So it's interesting. My parents were very much put emphasis on education. That was before everything else. So, they were invested in, making sure that we did Head Start like as a kid, which is a program I think that's discontinued now, but, going to the library and, tutors if needed, like, it was a priority in addition to what other responsibilities they had.
Yeah, and like you said, you think Head Start is gone. I think it's gone too. I don't know that it's gone, but I think it's gone. um,
Yeah.
I just had a lady on, and Head Start, I can't really define it 100%, but Head Start is a good way to get kids ready for life. I just
Yeah,
had,
it's it's a preschool program. It's like a preschool program where like sometimes the tutor will come to your home to assist you, but they go over reading and like the basics like to get you ready for school.
yeah. And then, so building on that point, I just had a lady from the Wild Horse Rescue in Webster, which isn't far from me. And her name is Diane Delano. She runs the 40-acre farm. She had the cameras rolling on these beautiful horses, and she brings school kids out to care for the horses. She calls them. Some volunteers were doing what she calls housekeeping. They were cleaning the stalls and stuff. What? Why?
Yeah,
What
learning
happened to?
responsibility.
Yeah, teaching them responsibility, teaching them it's not that easy, and maybe even implanting in their minds that having a child the minute you can isn't exactly the solution either, because it's a
Yeah.
lot of responsibility. Which brings me to so many points like you know um let making people understand fully what all they're getting into. Having a child is a beautiful thing. It's an
Yeah.
amazing thing. Every minute you spend with that child is amazing. Every
So
time you
it's
change
something
his
you cannot do
diapers,
by yourself.
you
No
can't do it
matter
by
how,
yourself.
it's not something you can just do. You have
And
to
it's
have a sense of support or a partner. And even then, you still have to do a whole bunch to be able to properly raise the child. And even nowadays, it is more expensive to raise a child because there's all these gadgets and all these things that are required. Like before, you could raise a kid without needing your cell phone or needing a computer or needing any of these resources. But everything is through technology nowadays. Even if you want to search for something or get something, you have to go online, you have to kind of look. And that is a challenge for some people because getting internet, electricity, having a computer. So it really sets people back if they don't have the right start and they're not, with everybody else. The competition's heavy.
the competition's heavy, and it's awful. And I really think, again, not announcing my candidacy or not promoting my candidacy. I just think there's so much more we can do. Then there's so much more we can do in our education system than what we're doing. And um and I think the return on investment would be enormous that if we did it. We're in this time now where we're talking about slashing everything, and some of it's happening. And
Yes.
and be that as it may, whatever side of the spectrum you're on, as far as red or blue, it doesn't really matter. Things are changing rapidly, and all I know is if we had implemented some of these programs me and you had talked about just now, more people would be ready for these changes. Because right now, I don't think anybody is. Right now, I just see disaster lying ahead. I
Yeah,
just
because
see.
the cuts are being made, but there's nothing being proposed as a replacement or alternative. So everybody's kind of in limbo wondering what is going to be coming because we, as the citizens, we don't have a say. I mean, we do want change and we've emphasized overhauling, but I think the overhaul was meant to be like for like Congress and like the like representatives and not necessarily policies. So I think
Right.
that was a surprise.
And then comes, we've literally talked, just like you said, we've talked about overhauling government governing, and none of it's happened. We talked about term limits, and none of it's happened. We've talked about the corruption. There's an app where you can follow Nancy Pelosi's stock trades, and I say don't bother following them because she bought them 90 days ago. Now they're already high priced. She got the information early on. If she's making 30%, she got information early on. There's all this frustration, but why not teach people how to understand what's worth buying 90 days ago? How to at least be able to, like you said, get on the internet. When I was a kid, I owned a cleaning business. I got a job cleaning general rental. I was a rental place, and I was stripping and waxing the floors. The owner uh had recommended I buy Home Depot stock. So I said I didn't know anything about buying stock. But long story short, had I known anything, and I listened to him, um, I would have made a fortune. So we run across these people, total strangers with a good intentions and trying to teach you something, but you don't know enough to act on what they're sharing. And
Understood.
and we need more of that. We need to understand more what's going on. Not just talk in frustration that we have this lawmaker who's making all these enormous trades and and just saying it's wrong. I don't know that she's operating on insider information or not. I really don't know what she's doing, but um we just need to know how to do it. and they need to share. I mean, we need to learn about it at a young age.
Yeah, that could be a great high school class, learning about finances. And because I mean, in high school, they do touch on, like economics a little bit. And that is a great part of economics that could be, branched off of in terms of like learning about the government and the branches and things like that.
Yeah, that would be really something really great. I just think we need to get more into that, and I'm gonna continue on this course where I don't know that I'm gonna run or I'm just gonna keep talking about the next person who runs should consider some of this.
How long is the term if you do run? If you run and won, how long would your term be?
I
A
believe
year?
it's 4 years.
Oh, okay. Because, like you definitely would be want to be more visible in the community at events and networking with people to kind of see like have yourself put out there more in person. Definitely showing up
Yeah,
at
I
the
definitely, yeah, I did. That was one of the things I had mentioned was when, as far as if I did run, I don't know if I have the time to commit because I'm always short on time, between work and kids and everything.
yeah.
So I never know. I don't want to commit to something that I can't give 100%, but I'm gonna definitely, look into it. But
Yeah, because if it's less than 2 years, I would definitely prep yourself to run in 2 years and spend the next 2 years networking and getting to know people and finding out what the issues are. If it's four, that could give you more time to do your research and whatnot. But yeah, I would definitely start early.
I'm definitely gonna work on it. Yeah. Um, and then I really love the fact that you took the time to get with me and talk a little bit because you shared some great insight. And that's what we're really doing here is we're just bringing on people from everywhere. You're a good friend of mine. We've known each other for minimum 10 years now. We've been through a lot together, as far as understanding each other's lives and working together. And that's what I always encourage people. If they ever have something to share, talk, let's talk about it.
Yeah, because I know like currently right now with like the way rules are going, I find myself asking, and I actually was thinking like maybe you could do that for your next episode. What does America first look like to you? Because I notice people keep saying that, but I feel like there's no specifics besides like, oh, we keep funding money to other countries but then on the flip side, we are gutting programs for citizens here. So how do we put Americans first when the things they need help with are not available? Because a lot of the time, like America investing in other countries, there's an incentive for us, or there's a reason we're doing it. It's not like we're giving people free money. We're doing it almost like as a networking because we're going to do something along the lines. We see something in the future that we could have a go ahead with, is what I've noticed.
What's
So,
interesting about that is it's true. We're talking about America first, but we haven't cut any countries off, but we've cut everything off at home.
yes.
So, I mean, that's the irony of it all. We've literally cut everything off at home, but there really hasn't been much cut off. I know we saw this little antics and reality TV give a new meaning as far as how we treat world leaders when they fly over to the White House, and some of that funding was cut off. But there was no appetite for more funding for Ukraine. There was no reason to believe Congress was going to bring forth another bill. Uh, to give Ukraine another $60 billion. It was all just antics. But really, the cutbacks have come here at home. We've cut off everything at home. So I
Yes.
don't I don't I don't understand the the point of calling it America first when at first America's seeing the cuts first, not the priorities first.
Yes. And a lot of the investments are going privatized that were, I guess, previously public or, like, because you keep talking about like Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid, and health insurance and privatization and removing government involvement. But we need all those chapters to keep regulation and rules and, order and at least enforce the rules. I mean, right now, the whole controversy is DEI, which, people are put emphasis on the diversity, but not the equity and inclusion. And in the way of not supporting it, not recognizing that almost everybody in some kind of way falls under that umbrella. A man that I was reading an article just before coming on here about a veteran who was able to work his way into the government after he got his degree. and he just got let go from, I think, say Doge or Dodge, but the new program, and they gave him a termination letter, and he, said, like, I'm a veteran. I voted for Trump thinking that, this would help with recognition for veterans and respect to us. And I just was treated like I was disposable, is how he felt.
They've
So
disposed of over 2 million people, as far as I know, government workers. And you know
yeah,
what's interesting about that is,
the
again, we go
low
back to
level
the
government workers, entry level
yeah.
almost.
And so when we talk about America first, when you think about the economy taking a tailspin, sometimes it starts off with an announcement by General Motors that they're going to lay off 25,000 people. You're talking
Ooh,
to, and now you're talking about 2 million layoffs. And what is that going to do to the economy? And does that put America first? And where are we cutting? Where are we cutting foreign aid? That's another question I have. Where are we cutting foreign aid? Because I haven't heard a single dime from Doge cutting foreign aid. The only thing they're cutting
yeah.
is America's aid,
If anything, they're
Americans'
shifting
aid.
funds to more private companies, if
Right.
anything. And
By
then,
paying
like,
for also by paying for big tax cuts. By cutting these programs, they're paying for big tax cuts in the hopes that they'll get those tax cuts passed, which they will. They very much will.
yes. And, I think right now they had recently just proposed um, cutting, in Florida, cutting a tax. I don't know specifically which one, but they were sales tax, I believe they were trying to cut in favor of, no, property taxes.
They're talking about cutting income tax too,
Okay,
which
so
it hasn't happened though. Not that I'm all for it, but it hasn't happened. It's just talk.
which seems odd because there was such an opposition to increasing the minimum wage, citing fears that things would increase, but things did increase, but not the wages. It was a slow progression that still is not making things affordable if you live minimum wage.
Yeah,
So
it's not a good situation we're in. There are solutions. I'm not knocking what's going on. I'm just saying we need to be doing it more in a way that's more constructive than destructive.
yes, I got to look up the proposed cut for Florida because I believe the result was just increased sales tax to compensate for cutting. I think it's like a state tax or property taxes. I'm not sure which one, but it's for homeowners, I believe. But the problem is, I was like, that just makes the poor even more poor because we're shifting the funds down and not distributing them equally or even making cuts for the lower people that can't afford things. Because a 12% sales tax in Florida is
It's just gonna be, again, it's just an elitist approach because frankly, they're gonna, when it comes to a car, they're gonna say it's only on the first 5,000. But when it comes to everything else, as far as consumer goods, they're probably it's not fair. It's not a fair way to do it. And
yeah.
but here's the thing, I do want to continue this conversation. The problem, I know sometimes we go into, it's been suggested to me we keep it down to 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay. There's
So
always a part 2, part 3 follow up because then based off the feedback people or questions people have about this episode, you can always bring it like this is part 2 following this previous episode.
yeah, I
Like
would
in a
love
month.
to have you back, Lisi. Let's talk again and let's talk about getting you back on.
Okay, great. Yeah, because definitely there's some different topics I am very passionate about as well that I feel like I could definitely bring perspective to.
You
Maybe a
did
little
great today. Text me and we'll cover those topics.
okay, a little controversial, but willing to ruffle some feathers. And
I'm always willing to ruffle some feathers.
yeah. So thank you for having me follow.
Lisa, you've been awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. We will talk soon. So like, share, subscribe, comment. We've got Lisa Rivera here, a good friend of mine for many, many years. I'm looking forward to having her back. Thank you so much.